One other question before we turn this over to you all. How does this play out next year in the election? That this seems to have become a partisan issue where it really wasn't for a long time. I know what you think. I know what you first, Chip.
You know, as a Republican, to be honest, it grieves me to see most of my party aligned more with the incumbents, which is really as a free market type person, I look at the incumbents who simply want to have their markets and their old business models protected. And instead of having free market competition that is disruptive, the open internet, if you think about it, if we were to go to bed tonight and have a dream of a perfect free market, the internet is a perfect free market. You know, the democracy that Gigi talked about, as far as being able to have 4 million people actually have an influence on something that was technical, it seemed, and regulatory and Washington-based, that is an example of the free expression and the power of an open free network and platform. So as we go forward, what I'm beginning to see and what I sense and believe is the internet economy and the internet value system, the internet principles, are going to overtake the old networks and the old models, and it's going to reshape politics on both sides of the aisle, and eventually the Republicans will go from being a traditionalist, institutionalist status quo, protecting of the old models and the old ways, to joining the new way, the new economy, new principles. And it's just going to take us persuading, engaging, informing, getting Data Foundry to bring Republicans down to see their wonderful facility in Austin that is, talk about investment and innovation. It is the hub of the internet, probably one of the best facilities you could ever have any place in the world that we got to tour today with Gigi and the rest of the team here. Those types of things and efforts will eventually bring the entire country, both parties, into a consensus.
I'd just like to give a shout out to Data Foundry and to Ron and to Andy and to Ed.
Yeah!
Because they do God's work. I mean, I love, Andy says to me, oh, I had lunch with Grover Norquist today and we just couldn't convince him and we got up on a stage with Ted Cruz. God bless you guys. I may be a Democrat, though not quite as hard line as Chip would like to make me out to be. But the fact of the matter is it gives me no joy that this has become a partisan issue. Okay, so the first time the internet rose up and affected policy was the SOPA-PIPA battle. So the SOPA-PIPA were two very bad laws that SOPA-PIPA, that Hollywood proposed that really would have broken the internet, just to protect their copyright. And this was bipartisan. In fact, the Republicans had to drag the Democrats, right? It was people like Darrell Issa and folks like that, Jerry Moran from Kansas and others, who said this is bad, and the Democrats finally got a clue, all right? But that's what we'd really like to see. And we don't only have folks like Chip, there's a group called the Internet Freedom Business Alliance, which includes a lot of conservative groups, but we cannot yet seem to get a policymaker in Washington to say that net neutrality, and particularly Title II, is important. And I don't know if people saw what happened when Ted Cruz called net neutrality Obamacare for the internet. He got excoriated. He got scorched on his Facebook page. And these folks need to know that their constituents want an open internet, that's really important to them. And again, God bless Data Foundry, and Scott McCullough's also there. I love listening to him talk.
Right. So
he sounds like a good old liberal when he talks, but he ain't. And those guys are at the bleeding edge, and I believe that one day you guys will be vindicated because your party will come around. Because otherwise, it's going to be bad for them in elections going forward.
I'm sure some of you noticed Grumpy Cat flying over the skies, taunting Ted Cruz for his wrong position on net neutrality a few days ago. That was Fight for the Future and Demand Progress. So one thing that shocked DC was that people were calling them about this issue, right? Tumblr, Etsy, Kickstarter, Vimeo, these activist groups drove hundreds of thousands of calls. Now, usually they get calls and it's, don't mess with my Medicare, don't mess with my Social Security. Maybe there are calls about pipelines or immigration, guns. I mean, I think there's a generational shift happening, and people who are born and raised with the internet, there's this open data to connect with anyone. To them, taking away an open internet is like taking away for the previous generations Social Security or Medicare. This is something we as Americans, or free expression, right? These are our privacy, right? Like an open internet is so core to what we believe that people pick up the phone and call congressmen, call the FCC. They take action, and that is transformational. And I think any presidential candidate or party who's on the wrong side of history will have to switch or die.
So I just want to say, Andrew McFarlane and Andrew Staples and some other folks in Golden Frog worked really hard to pull this panel together. You may have noticed that we're all kind of agreeing up here. We didn't plan to have everybody on the panel agreeing, but all the people who think the other way, who disagree, they wouldn't come. They were invited. That's not true. Okay, I guess we had one and didn't make the cut. Maybe we'll talk more about that one later. But seriously, Andy McFarlane spends a lot of time on both sides of the aisle. He gets incredulous looks and people giving that kind of nervous laugh at him when he goes from one side of the aisle to the other and says, "Oh, I just talked to the guy over there." And they say, "Really? You talked to him? Isn't he a Neanderthal?" But he talks to everybody, and we work with everybody. And Andy tried to get dissenting voices on this panel, example notwithstanding, and we couldn't get somebody to come up here and disagree and fight with us. So my point is that there is a sea change happening, and we are on the right side of history. And you stand in front of it at your own peril.